right.
Hello, 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 hello. Welcome. It is Thursday. We are here with Gabriela, and today is a very special one. Before we get started too much, you can see we are back to a different setup than last week. So California shut down a lot more of the state again, so we can't even be near each other. So if there are any technical difficulties or whatever, we really appreciate your patience. Also, if you have trouble hearing or seeing at any time, let me know. I'm Amber. I might be a little choppier or what have you, but as long as you can see Gabriela, that's the most important part. So this is Gabriela, of course, the wonderful founder and owner
Hello.
of Besame Cosmetics. And today, what we are doing is talking all about business stuff, about what Gabriela has learned as a small business owner. She went into this a little bit, just a tiny, tiny bit in a Q&A video, and we decided to do a whole thing just about this. So if you have a question about starting a business, starting your own business, running a business, please put that in the chat now. Also, we have some questions from Instagram that we asked on Gabriela's Instagram. So we might start out with those, but we will get to your questions too. So feel free to put those in the chat at any time. Great. Gabriela, how are you doing today? You look
Good.
beautiful.
Oh,
Velvet
thank you.
throne.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm back in my library set, but all alone because there's nobody else in the studio. But it's great. We're trying to work around everything, and we're still here, so it's good. It's very good.
Cool. So I think we'll get started with some questions from Instagram, and then again, we can go back and forth. So we'll kind of do maybe a slight two-part question, but kind of starting at the beginning, just trying to get the right person. All right. So, oh, I lost my place immediately at all the questions. Good job, me. So great. Our two questions are, how did you start the process of creating Besame? And that's from Anna High VCO, probably said that wrong, sorry. And then also, did you have investors? Happy Cat 1998 asked that. So how did you start? Did you have investors, and how did you get investors if you did? Great.
Okay. So I started this business 16 years ago. So when I started it, it was really something that I had no intention of actually going into this business because I'm a designer by trade. So I had a design business. So I did design work, and I designed products and graphics and other things for other clients. So I had that business already, and that's what I was doing. And doing cosmetics just happened to be something that I did on the side because I was already working on some projects for other brands, and I wanted to do something personal that I liked, or products that I would consider something that kind of intrigued my aesthetic and what I wanted. But I didn't have any intention of actually making anything. It just kind of happened that I said, well, maybe I'll just make one little thing and see if anybody is interested. And it kind of developed from there. But I really didn't have, and all this business was self-funded because it was money that I was making doing other work and designing for other people. And I just took some of that and started investing it into making these things. But it wasn't, I didn't have investors, and I really didn't have the idea of making this, just a business I would take over my practice, which it did at one point, because at one point I couldn't really do work for other people. I just had to do just work for Besame and not have any other clients. So it just happened gradually, but no, I really, it was all self-funded, and it's still self-funded to this day.
That is so cool. I feel like that's a rare thing to hear. You just hear so much about people going after investments and stuff.
Yes.
And have you liked being able to, be completely self-funded and not have that kind of like accountability behind you?
Well, it's a difficult thing. It's more difficult, obviously, because you have to budget really carefully, and you can get into trouble very easily, as far as, losing money or losing things. But when you get money from other people, there are other obligations and other things that come along with that. You have to basically, have the same vision for the business with the other person that you're using their capital. So it becomes more difficult to keep your own vision of what you want to do with the company when there's other people that maybe have divergent ideas of what should be done. So I would say to be very careful when you are asking for capital, to make sure that your goals are aligned before you get into that kind of relationship.
Yeah. We had a quick side question of what lipstick are you wearing? People think your lipstick looks beautiful.
Red Hot Red. I'm wearing Red Hot Red today. Yes.
And I am wearing the Love That Redhead lipstick from our Lucy collection that you can pre-order.
Awesome.
Back to business.
Yes.
What Ashley asked, what kind of design work were you doing right before Besame? Were you designing cosmetics or designing something else?
Actually, everything. I was designing all kinds of things. Cosmetics was one of them. Yes, I did some work for certain brands, and I designed packaging. I designed concept ideas for entire lines. I designed skincare for some customers. I did some hospitality things. I did a lot of nonprofit work. So I did do a lot of things for the Red Cross and United Way and a lot of nonprofit organizations. So I did a lot of work for that in order to get donations and things like that. So entire campaigns for that. I worked on that for a long time. So a lot of corporate communications as well as consumer products. So I did a lot of different type of work. And I have been doing it for a very long time too. I'm also a photographer by trade, so I was doing photography as well. So product photography and things like that. I was doing that before I ever got into actually doing cosmetics as a business.
Yeah, Gabriela's done a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
It's a very cool story.
Yes.
But yeah, all that info kind of comes in handy, I feel like.
Yes.
There was kind of going off of, how you started this while you had another job. We had I'm so bad at reading Instagram names. Demade or clothing, something like that. I'm so sorry. They asked how do you start and keep going with a business when you already have a full-time job?
Well, it's very difficult actually to do this, and I understand the frustration with that, because it really is difficult to do both things, but also you can't let go of an income before you're secure that you have income from that business. You can't just, it would be kind of foolish, I think, to let go of your kind of bread and butter type of work, and the money that you need to live on, and just work at a business 100% of the time when you're not actually getting a salary from that business to live on. So I think a lot of people try to do this, but it's very, very hard, and it's really not sustainable if you have a family. Because at the point when I started the business, I had a very young son, and my husband, and that, so I had other responsibilities, so it wasn't feasible for me to say, oh, I'm just going to do this 100%, and maybe we'll eat and maybe we won't, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just like, maybe you would have done it by yourself, but with other responsibilities you can't really do that. So I basically I still kept doing freelance and doing consulting work, even up to several years into the business, where the business was making some money. I still kept having other work that I was doing on the side, because I wasn't 100% secure that the business was making enough to support us. And also I kept reinvesting money into the business that the business made. So it didn't actually give me a salary for I didn't take out salary for a long time to keep the business growing with more capital. So I needed to still do other work. So it's something that you have to figure out. And obviously you work a lot more hours than what you think you're going to do, because obviously you have to do your job, but then you also have to dedicate hours to this other business in order to make it grow. So it's a very difficult time period when you have to straddle these two things. But hopefully you do it for a certain amount of time, and one of these things takes off, and then you can just decide to say, okay, at this point I can let go of this and concentrate 100% on this other venture. But you have to do it consciously. You have to do it in a way that doesn't put you in jeopardy, because you can't really make good decisions when you're not secure in your, where you're actually making a living from.
Yeah. That's so good. Thank you. And Lana, you have a question. I'll get to that really soon. I just wanted to get this one from Louisa first, where she asked, has anyone ever closed the door on you or said that your idea for vintage reproduction makeup would not have a following?
All the time, from the beginning. From the very beginning, when I started this, I had to convince the lab that I work with first to actually make the product for me, even though I was paying them for it. I had to convince them to do it, because they really didn't think it was going to go anywhere, and they just didn't want to waste their time. So it was very, very hard. Most people told me that it wouldn't go anywhere. You have to remember, 16 years ago, vintage wasn't a kind of a more
It wasn't as
up to
in vogue.
date. Yeah, it wasn't like really. People thought of vintage more like buying things in second-hand stores or thrift stores and things like this. So it didn't have the kind of being in fashion as it is right now. So in a lot of circles, especially like beauty, where everybody was trying to be like, oh, the more modern, or the like, oh, this is the next best thing, or the next thing, that's groundbreaking. To say that something was old or inspired by something older wasn't that appealing at the time. They really didn't see the appeal. So a lot of people just told me, this doesn't, this is not a concept that people will go after or even be interested in. And I did it anyway because again, it was kind of my pet project, and it was very small at first. I only did one item, and I just kind of put it out there and to see if people would take to it. So so my risk was not as big because I didn't make a whole line. I made one thing, and so I kind of did it and then saw to see if the market responded and how the market responded to it. But certainly other people really weren't into it, into the idea. And even a few years ago, people still weren't into the idea. So it's basically you have to kind of believe in it and know that you have a market and that market does want your product.
And I think that's so great because I feel like sometimes on shows like Shark Tank or things like that, you get advice of like, well, you have to just dive into this 100% and make it your life, or otherwise you're not doing it right. And I feel
Right.
like you're so much better set up for success by you really believe in it, but with just one lipstick, you get a chance to see if people agree and
Right.
see how much you can build or change or whatever. And like it allows you to be more confident in what you're
Right.
doing because you're not risking, you're not putting it all on
That's the
on the
thing,
line.
it's just like any other risk. I mean, you have to be willing to lose. So don't put out more than you're willing to lose. So if it's going to cost you, I don't know, $10,000, $20,000, let's say, to do something, um, make sure that you're okay if that money just goes away. Obviously you don't want it to do that, but if for some reason it doesn't work, it's not going to devastate your life. You have to take calculated risk. An entrepreneur is not like people think that oh, you just have tolerance for risk and you don't care, you just do it 100%, and whether it's successful or not. But that's not really quite right, actually. A good entrepreneur actually takes risk, but they're calculated risk. So how much you're willing to lose. It's kind of like when you go to Vegas and you go to a roulette table. You only, obviously put down only what you're willing to lose. You're not going to put down your whole mortgage payment on there. If you have to pay it and you have nothing else to pay with, that would be kind of foolish. It's the same thing with business. You put down, or you get a loan, or however you get money to start, only what is comfortable for you to risk, because there's always a percentage of a chance that it's not going to work out correctly, or you're going to lose maybe some of that money because of issues that come up with things. Either your advertising costs more, or you spent more on certain things, so things didn't add up the way that you thought. And this is usually the case. You can make all the calculations you want, but at the end of the day, things don't always work the way you think, and there are expenses that come up or losses that come up that you didn't budget for. So you have to be okay with that fluctuation in the business. So sometimes you do well, and other times you don't do as well, and you have to be okay with that.
Cool. Lana has some questions that are like a little more specific on kind of starting a beauty business.
Sure.
She asks, how did you find suppliers? And she also asked just about the legal side of starting a business. So you can answer whichever part first.
Sure. Well, suppliers, I mean, there's organizations. There's a really good organization called ICMAD. It's the industry's kind of manufacturing association. And if you look them up, you can join that organization as a startup or as an indie brand, or and that organization has a lot of resources as far as laboratories and fillers and people and all kinds of things that are kind of vetted through the organization. So it's companies that have been around a while that they vouch for. And so you can find a lot of things on there. The other organization that's really good to join is CEW from New York. So that organization also has a lot of resources on jobs, people, suppliers. There's even if you actually join, you can access online and actually put out calls for different suppliers or things, and people will answer you. So there's a lot of resources now on the web to find good suppliers. And as far as the legal side of things, you have to determine first what kind of company you want to establish, and then you have to establish an entity for that company. So either you're a sole proprietor, you're a partnership with somebody else, you are a corporate entity, or you're an LLC. So there are all these differences that have to do with filing taxes and things like this that determine, which one you want to go for of these things. Like, for example, a corporation, it files separate taxes. So it's more expensive to have a corporation because you have to file your personal taxes as an employee of the corporation, but you also have to file taxes for the corporation as an entity, which obviously you have to pay for on the company side. But if you go with an LLC, for example, the funds from the company go through you. So obviously you file your taxes. And you file as the owner of the company. So it's a bit cheaper, but there are other variations on different things depending on which one you go for. So it depends what you want. If it's a partnership, obviously you file as a partnership. And there's a lot of ways you could go to LegalZoom and file for all these different corporations. You don't really need a lawyer to file for these things. It's very simple to do. And as long as you establish the company and then you have a tax ID from the state that you're in that you can pay your taxes on, you're good to go. Then you need other things actually to have a company, like you need liability insurance, for example. So insurance is part of one of the things you need. So insurance and obviously insurance for your office or your equipment or wherever you're doing business in, and then product insurance. So there's a lot of insurances that go along with that. But these organizations, though, that I mentioned earlier can help you with all these things because they have resources for lower rates of insurance and all kinds of things. So you can get a lot out of these organizations.
So you recommend going to those organizations and LegalZoom without, instead of like talking to an actual lawyer and paying them for an hour? Or whatever.
Yeah, you don't really, well, unless your situation is complicated for some reason, you don't really need a lawyer for these parts of things because they're fairly straightforward. If you have a product, though, that you want to patent, for example, that's a different story. You might want to have a lawyer to help you with the patent. Again, you don't have to, but it gets a bit more complicated if you are not familiar with the legal filings as far as trademarks and patents and things like this. Again, you can do it yourself if you go to the government website, the USPTO website, uspto.gov, and read all the information you need is on there. So if you educate yourself on it, you can do a lot of it. I mean, early on when I did all my trademarks, I did them all myself. I couldn't afford an attorney, but I studied law for a few years, so it's a little different. So, but anyways, you could do it if you wanted to. But on patents, it's a little more difficult because you do need to research if other people have a patent, and a lawyer can help you with that research. So for things like that, where you want to patent an invention, you kind of need some legal help. And it's an expensive process. It's not inexpensive. But if you think you have something that is worthwhile patenting, putting a patent on, then it might be the way to go. But remember, with patents and trademarks, it's all really depending on how you can defend these things. Because you can patent something and protect it. But if somebody else, for example, makes a product that's just like it and puts it on the market, you have to have enough funds to be able to go defend it. So you still have to spend money to defend this. So if you don't have the cash flow in your business to be able to do that, then the patent isn't, or the trademark isn't worth as much to you, because the only reason that you do that is to protect it from other people being able to use it. But you also have to defend that. And sometimes you have to defend it in court if other people just take it. And not to mention if other people do it outside of the country, which becomes very, very difficult to defend. So there's a lot of, if you listen to the lady who started Spanx, for example, she had some patents on her things, but then other people violated her patents, but she decided not to go after them because she didn't want to spend all that money in defending this. She wanted to just put that money into growing her business. So she chose not to litigate against people who copied her in the beginning. So these things all require you to figure out what is going to work the best for your situation.
Wonderful, thank you. Let's see, we had a couple questions in the comments here. Oh, and really quickly, someone asked on Instagram that do you need to trademark your name? And also a patent is for products, correct? And a trademark is more for names.
Yes. Yes, the trademark,
like
you should trademark your brand name because you don't want other people putting products with the same name. And that's fairly easy to defend, so you should trademark your name. Also because of the fact that you need to look up to make sure that other people don't already have this name. Because if somebody else is already using your name, and you start your business with this name and you put all this money into branding and all this with this name, and somebody else is already using it, you're not going to be able to use it because they'll probably send you a cease and desist letter and you will have to change it. So you want to make sure that when you choose a name and you go ahead and want to use that for your company, that it's clear that the name isn't being used by anybody else. Now, again, you can do a lot of research on your own. You can research on the government website, uspto.gov, or you can hire an attorney to do all this research for you and pay them. Usually they charge $100, $150 or more an hour to do these kinds of things, depending on the lawyer that you pick. But basically, yes, they go through and research and make sure that nobody else has trademarked this particular name already, so that if you do want to use it and you want to trademark, nobody else is going to object to that filing.
And Sarah mentions to also trademark your logo, correct?
Yes. Your logo, your name, and any graphics that go along with your logo, you can also trademark as well. So all of that you can trademark. And you can trademark a saying as well. Like if you have a tagline, you can, or a special name for a product, for example, you can trademark that, and then other people can't use it if you already trademarked it. So that's fairly easy to do. It costs a few $100s online. You can file it yourself. You don't necessarily need an attorney to do this. And it's, it does give you protection as far as using names. Patents are different. Patents are for utility or use of a specific product. So like you designed a different kind of compact or a different kind of brush or a different kind of comb or something that has a function that is not already in the market. So it does something different than what a regular comb does, for example.
Yeah. Interesting. All right, we have a couple questions here. C. Johnson asked if Besame's ever been asked to sell to one of the larger beauty brands. Has anybody offered to buy Besame out at any point?
A couple of times other entities have asked us, but we really weren't in a position where we thought the company was in the right space to be sold to somebody else, because I really didn't think that they would do anything with it or expand it in any way. So I wasn't inclined to do it. So not anything that I would have considered as of yet.
And we have a question from Sarah. This is one kind of a vulnerable question. Have you
Yeah.
ever had a business owning moment that was heartbreaking? And what would you say is your biggest mistake?
Heartbreaking. Well, there's a lot of those. I mean, there's a ton of those.
Too many.
What isn't? I mean, there's so many. There's so many. I mean, there's so many times when things go wrong. Like you hire somebody to make a product, and then something goes wrong with the formula, and it turns or it goes bad. Uh, and it's nothing that you did, but your supplier did something wrong, and you have to recall all of that product. So things like that happen, and they're terrible at the time. But you move on. But yeah, there's a lot of things. I mean, when you, especially at first, when you're like really bootstrapped for cash, it's kind of really touch and go. You really don't know how long you can keep going. So it takes a lot of perseverance at the beginning, because you're going to hear a lot of no. Especially, see, now there's just so many people with brands. There's so many things out there. There's so much noise that it's very, very hard to, if you do want to go into retail, for example, to get the attention of a retailer and to get placement in a retailer. It's really, really hard to do this because there's just so many people and so many brands. And also, not every brand belongs in every retailer. You really have to think about what retailer actually represents my brand the best. Like, where are my customers? Do my customers shop that store? Would they shop my brand if I put it in that store? So it's not as simple as just like, oh, I just want distribution everywhere, because your customers aren't necessarily there. And you might put it in the store, but it's just going to sit on that shelf and nobody will take it. And then the retailer will say, you know what, it's not selling. You better take it back. And then that's it. Then you're pretty much done with that. Because that's kind of what they do. They don't say, oh, let us promote it or let us do something. They don't say that.
Yeah.
They say, your product's not really doing too well. I think we should take it out. And they just ship it back to you, and then not pay you. So it's a lot more cutthroat than people think. It's not. It is very calculated. They don't take any risks at retail. They don't like risk. They go for the sure thing. So when you have a brand and you want them to sell it, it basically, they're assuming that they put it on that shelf and it's going to walk away. It's not going to take any kind of work on their part or effort or promotion to get that to sell to the consumer. So if that is not the case, if you are not sure that that's going to happen, then don't do that, because the repercussions of that are really bad. If it doesn't sell and then they just tell you to leave, then it's very hard to recover from that, because you spend a lot of money and you have a lot of product that just got back there that you're not going to know where to sell. So it's not a good situation. So just make sure that all the things are actually lined up correctly before you jump into that.
And kind of conversely, has there been like one of the happiest memories from your time as a business owner, or biggest successes?
Well, it's always happy when you see reactions of people, for things like when we did different collections that we've done, where people like, I remember when we announced that we were doing Agent Carter, and people just cried. They just started crying in front of me. I was
Gosh.
It's like, I didn't know this was so sad, but they were like crying from happiness. It was just like, oh my goodness. I didn't know that people were that invested in this character to really like feel it this way. But a lot of different things, a lot of when we get different people, different age groups in our store, like all the different generations of people, like their mom and the grandma and the aunt and the girls, and they all kind of see things that they can identify with there. it's very moving because they kind of like are discovering things together and they can share in this, and it's kind of really neat to be able to do that with all kinds of different age groups.
It's very telling that your answer to that question is all about the customers and their happiness and not about, oh, the day I sold all this stuff and saw all the money come in. Like, I think that's so key, like, because you care so much about the reactions and the customers and what they need, that just comes through, and
Well,
people
it's just
sense
like
that, I
that.
think.
I mean, it's the only reason that we do what we're doing is every time I design anything, I'm thinking of the customer. I'm thinking, does she like this? Will she like this?
Yeah.
Do I think she is going to enjoy this? Because I design for them. So the customer is always on my mind. It's really the main reason that we're doing what we're doing is to kind of bring that delight and emotion to the customer and the experiences, and I want to tell them stories and things of of the past that they have never heard before. In that type of kind of delight in the customer is what really makes me want to do this.
That's very cool. Lourdes asked, what's a good resource for finding designers if you have ideas, but you're not a designer yourself?
Okay, well, working with creatives, that's a whole episode in itself.
That's the next part 2.
Yeah, that's a whole episode in itself. Yes, it's very hard to find people that will interpret things that you have in your mind that can't see what you're seeing or don't see what you're seeing. So you have to really just either interview people or look online at their work. And really the easiest way to find somebody when you don't know anything about the person is look at their work and see if what they're doing is what you want. Do you see what you want in some of their work already? And that's probably the most fail-safe way to go about it, because if you already see the style that you like in something they've done, then you can say, well, I kind of want something like this, but I want XYZ with that. And that's a shorter bridge. Now, if you go with a creative that doesn't show any work, like, for example, you go with an illustrator that does, I don't know, tattoo art, but you're looking for something, Rococo, for example, or, it's going to be a little bit of a stretch because that person might be really good at that type of look, but maybe when you tell them, no, I want something feminine and pretty in this, they don't quite do that style. So it might not translate as well. Some people can, but other people can't. And if you don't know that about your designer, it's much better to pick somebody where you kind of see in some of their work the types of things that you're looking for. Like it's clean, or the lines are clean, or the fonts are like this, or the colors are like this, or the styling is modern, or this or that. Whatever it is that you're looking for, and then interview a lot of them as far as like, how do you charge? You charge by the hour? Do you charge me on the project? What does this include? Do I own the art, or is it still yours? All of these things. Get everything really well documented on paper so that you know what you're paying for. So like I want you to design this box, this thing, this, and that, and it's all kind of really ironed out exactly as what you're going to pay for this and what you're going to receive, because it can get a little muddy if these things are kind of left out nebulous in your initial conversation.
And this kind of goes in with a question. We had a couple questions on Instagram about networking in general. Do you have any tips for meeting other people, networking with other entrepreneurs, designers, potential customers, just networking in general?
Well, I'm terrible at that. I really am. I was never good at it. I'm kind of a more shy person, and and I kind of work on my own a lot, so I'm not particularly good at it. I can tell you that. I've tried over the years, and I've done a lot of, I like to do customer events where I meet customers because I enjoy talking to the customers and telling them about what I'm doing and getting their feedback on things. But as far as other business people, it's harder for me to really find. And you'll find that a lot of organizations with other business people, at least over the years, I mean, I don't know, obviously I started a long time ago and the climate is changed now than it was, but there's a lot of different types of people in those environments, and a lot of them are just looking out for themselves. There's not a lot of sharing and kind of helping other people type of environment in a lot of these places. So I haven't found that. I don't know if there is, obviously now with a lot more women in business than there were when I started. There might be more support organizations out there, but I haven't really found too many like mentors or people that would help you as far as telling you about like business or don't do this or do that. There's a lot of consultants out there that will charge you for this, but as far as like people just offering to help, I haven't found too much of that in the industry. But like I said, there might be some other groups and organizations now for women in business and that are doing those things, and that maybe you can find some more people that will help you in different ways. But it's always kind of an uphill thing, actually, finding that.
Yeah. Sarah had a follow-up question with talking about, the customer focus. And she asked, when you initially, created that first lipstick, did you always have the customer in mind, or did you make something that you enjoyed and then it found the right customer and you went with that afterwards?
Well, with that first lipstick, really, I think it was something I enjoyed because I really didn't know anything about the customer at that point. So it was something
there hasn't been one.
Yeah, there wasn't one. So there wasn't anybody to ask. So it's really just, I made something that I personally thought was nice. And I thought, well, maybe other people will like it too. But I really didn't know. I hadn't done any focus groups. I hadn't talked to people about this, which you should do. If you're wanting to start a business, you should figure out what people want and if people would respond to this or not, because that would help you quite a bit if you kind of know. It's like, do people really like this idea or they don't really care? But I didn't, because again, I did it as a side thing that I thought, well, this is kind of neat. And if it works, it's okay. But if not, it's okay kind of thing. It was more of a creative exercise, I think, for me than anything else. It wasn't like look, I want to do this whole other business type of thing. So I started a little bit different than a lot of people, where you have more of a business focus. And that wasn't particularly great, actually. I'd recommend doing that. I recommend that.
Don't recommend doing what you do?
No, don't recommend what I did. Don't do. Actually, go and find out, about what people are thinking, what people would want, and also if there's white space in that arena, because there's so many people doing all kinds of things that somebody might be already doing what you thought of doing, and you just don't know about it, but somebody else already did it. So you should really look into everything before you spend any kind of money, because again, you might not be that original in that idea, and somebody might already have done that. Or there is really no need there's no white space, like what they call white space. So like an area that other people haven't really targeted, but there's an opportunity. If there isn't that white space, then it's very hard to get any traction, for example, because then you're just making another of a similar product that already is in the market. And it's very hard to differentiate that unless you have a really, really strong differentiation on your product that isn't in any other product in that same category.
And I think too that you're selling yourself a little bit short because you did, you did see that there was this white space around your idea, and that's like what inspired you to create it. And you had some
Yes.
experience. I say that mostly because Sarah immediately went, "Oh no, don't say that," because she's kind of taking your path a little bit. But it's
Well,
just making sure you do some research and some
yeah,
business stuff, and it's not
yeah.
just the artistic side.
I mean, I just didn't do any of the research. I didn't know for sure that there were people that would like it. You know what I mean?
Oh, sure, of course.
I didn't do any of that. But I think nowadays, because it's a lot easier, you have the web, you have so much information everywhere, that it's not that hard to see if other people would like it or if other people have the same idea or whatever. You can probably find this out very easily, where I couldn't do that 16 years ago because we didn't have the same information available, you know. So now I think it's a lot easier to figure out if your concept has legs, basically, you know, than it was before. But yeah, I just kind of went blind at it, and it's not a good idea to do that.
And that's why you're helping us now, we're learning. We don't have to do it very good advice.
Yes, definitely. I made all the mistakes, so you can learn from all the mistakes.
We had a question from Black Pinups. We have, how long did it take from selling your product before opening the store for it to become a success after the opening store? So how long did it take for Besame to become successful enough on its own and pay you a salary?
About 10 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
About 10 years, I would say. Yeah. Because the store has been open for about 7 now.
Okay.
So the store could generate revenue and get people coming when I opened it, 7 years ago.
Okay.
So that's kind of how long it took. But again, it's different because, again, I didn't have social media. It took a lot longer to get people to know we were there. I mean, people still don't know we're there, and it's been this long, and people still like, I never heard of you guys. I didn't know you were in the store, and that store has been open there for 7 years. So it's kind of like it takes a bit of time for people to catch on. But nowadays, because of all the social media and because of all of the media everywhere, you can get awareness much faster than I did. I was relying on old-fashioned newspapers and magazines and things, that would give you coverage, if they liked what you were doing. And so it's way different now with the amount of eyeballs that you can get on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. So there's a huge difference there. So you can do it probably way faster than what I did, because all these social media platforms are really like geared to finding a niche audience. They segment people by what they like. So it's easy to find your tribe in these groups of people. So it's a lot easier than it was before to really find the group that really identifies with what you're doing. It's just having something compelling for them to want, Yeah.
We had another question. We have, I think, just a couple last questions. How did you come up with the name Besame?
It comes from the song. The song is called Besame Mucho, and it's written by a Mexican woman in the 40s. And it was a very romantic song, and it had to do with the first time that she was kissed. And it's been pretty much sung by every artist in the world, this song. Yeah. So it's a very, very popular ballad, and it's very romantic, and it has a woman's point of view. And I especially liked it, so I wanted to name it after the song, because I thought it represented kind of what the line represents, that romance and that, that kind of wide-eyed wonderment of being kissed for the first time. And that's kind of what the name is for.
Oh, that makes, it's like, I feel like I kind of get that, even though I haven't heard that whole story, but like, I know it's from the song, and it does, like, it just conjures all those kind of images for you. And it's so
Yes.
perfect. It was really an excellent choice, Gabrielle. I don't know why you need me to say that.
Oh, thank you. Well,
No, you're just waiting for my approval.
But the name is interesting because I chose that name. Most people don't know what it means, because if they don't speak Spanish, they don't know what the word even means. So they just pronounce it like be same, like be the same. And it has like nothing to do with that at all.
No.
So I have to explain every time. So sometimes it's very difficult to pick a name that other people don't understand or would misinterpret in other ways, because you have to educate people on why and what it is, and that takes more time. So it takes more effort to do this on a marketing side, than if the name was just something more readily available, readily, recognizable, or plain kind of name. So it's hard, especially because it's a name in another language. People have associated us from the beginning of just being a kind of a Spanish brand, or only for Spanish people, which is kind of, again, but this is what happens in the market, is people try to put you in categories and say, well, this makeup is only for those people. And it's like, it's very hard to not get kind of stereotyped into different types of customers just because of where you're from,
Sure.
or the color of your skin or whatever. It's just the way people think, and especially business, because they just try to kind of put people in boxes. It's like, oh, you're this, you're that, you're this, you're this. So when you think about your name, think about all those things, because some things might be helpful and other things might not be as helpful. But again, you do however you want to do, because if it's important to you, then go with what your idea is.
Yeah. I think we have two quick questions just to end with.
Sure.
Thank you again, everybody, for all your questions. It's been so helpful and great to see. So quick one of, do you like working with your family? And the second one, and I hope the answer is yes. And the second one is, what are your dreams for Besame's future?
Well, as far as family, I mean, it's great to work with your family, because if not, you wouldn't see them a lot. Because, but as long as you get along with your family, because obviously, if you don't, you're going to spend a lot of time together. So make sure that you're comfortable with that and you can work with them, because if not, it'll drive you crazy if you don't get on. If you can't be with them all day long. But you're trying to work together, it's going to be really hard. So as far as family and friends, again, be careful with those relationships, because you have to make sure that you can get along with those people, and that you are going to still have the leadership role in your company, because you want to be the one steering that ship. And if you have too many people with different opinions, sometimes it gets really difficult to do that well, especially if those people are older than you or familiar with you in a way that they would question your authority on different things. So that gets kind of a little harder. So just be careful on that kind of thing. But if you get along and it's a good relationship, it's great, because you're all kind of pushing for the same thing. If that works out. And as far as what I want for Besame, I mean, we're doing so many things that are so neat, and I'm so excited about the iconic women that we started. I mean, these are getting just better and better. We have so many opportunities, so many iconic women to do that are just awesome, and I'm so excited to bring them to you, because I'm excited to learn all about them, and interview their family and give you kind of a more in-depth view of their career and what they did and what they used. So I'm very excited. We have some really heavy-hitting iconic women coming up that I'm eager to share with you. Obviously, collaborations, we're doing all kinds of different ones that are a lot of fun. That I want to share with you. And then a lot of core products, because I'm trying to get all these core products back in line. We've been kind of distracted between COVID limitations and other commitments that we had with other collaborations. We've kind of not been able to put out all the core products that we wanted to put out. So we're finally getting to all these products. So this year we'll have all new categories of product in the core line that I'm very excited to share with everybody. So all of that. So there's so many things. I'm working on at this point next year and the year after. So I work that far ahead on things because they take that long to make. At least for us, any product takes at least 8 months to produce. So I have to work way ahead to do products for next year and the year after to get them done on time.
Well, thank you so much, Gabriela, for sharing all of that. I feel like that was very helpful, so unique and interesting and so smart. I really appreciate that. People in the comments are very excited, really loved all your advice. And thank you guys so much for contributing and asking your questions. And as you can see, I mean, a lot of you guys are business owners and you can see there's a lot of hard times, but there's good times too. So I hope this was helpful for you. Gabriela, thank you again. Everyone, thank you for watching. We'll be back next week with more stuff. It won't be about business this time, unless you've got a dying question you want to ask.
Yeah, if you guys want more business things, let me know. I'm happy to answer. And if you have more questions, send them along, and we'll answer them on the blogs, or we'll answer them on the social media posts. So if you have more questions, please let me know.
Yeah, and follow Gabriela. She's at Besame Girl on Instagram. That's a great way to see more of her stuff and when we call out for questions. And subscribe to this channel too, just in case you haven't, just so you can get notifications and stuff of when Gabriela goes live again. So thank you so much. We will see you next week. Have a good weekend and Friday, and goodbye. Bye.
Bye-bye.